Women of Auschwitz. Memories of surviving Jewish women inside the Auschwitz concentration camp, struggling with racism and sexism. Written by Jim Colajuta. Read for you by Chloe Jacobson. Chapter 1. Introduction. During the Second World War, Jewish women suffered racism and sexism in German-controlled territory. While the Nazi state promoted the qualities of Kinder, Kuche, Kirche for Aryan women, were reveled as racial degenerates. Adolf Hitler warned his supporters about the perils of mingling Jewish, and Aryan blood in Mein Kampf as early as 1924. He expresses his concern. Look at the ravages from which our people are suffering daily as a result of being contaminated with Jewish blood. Bear in mind the fact that this poisonous contamination can be eliminated from the national body only after centuries, or perhaps never. Think further of how the process of racial decomposition is debasing, and in some cases, even destroying the fundamental Aryan qualities of our German people, so that our cultural creativeness is gradually becoming impotent. Hitler saw Jewish women in particular as particularly dangerous because of their propensity to bear new generations of considered enemies of the Reich. To avoid this, Nazi propaganda painted Jewish women using their sexual cunning to lure Aryan men to their demise. The Nazis pushed vehemently that Jewish motherhood is extinguished forever. Following Hitler's ascension to power, rules governing Jewish women's abortion and pregnancy rights were implemented. With the adoption of the Nuremberg laws in 1935, it became unlawful for Jews to engage in sexual relationships with Aryans. Policies aimed at Jewish women, particularly mothers, were expanded in the death camps, particularly Auschwitz. Before entering the camp, passing the initial examination was especially difficult for Jewish women. The majority of women arriving on the transports were pregnant, had children under the age of 14, or were 45 and deemed too elderly to work by the SS, so they were promptly taken to the death chambers. Males were less likely to be sent to their deaths when they arrived at Auschwitz, since the Nazis required healthy men to work as slave laborers. Women hired as laborers were often in their 20s and had no children. According to camp statistics, just 130,000 of the 400,000 prisoners held at Auschwitz between 1940 and 1945 were women. The problem with using these records is that they only include individuals who entered Auschwitz as employees. Those who were chosen for execution upon arrival were never counted, providing historians with an incomplete picture of the total number of people who died there. According to records, just 16,577 female detainees remained for the final roll call on January 17, 1945. When Soviet troops liberated Auschwitz 10 days later, nearly 4,000 of the 7,000 prisoners who had not been compelled to leave by the SS in forced evacuations were women. Despite being on the verge of death, these people had not succumbed to Hitler's so-called final solution, which sought to destroy all European Jews. These women had lived, despite all odds. But what exactly is a Holocaust survivor? A survivor is more than just someone who lived through World War II under the Nazi government. Members of towns that were left intact and persons who remained to live in their own homes throughout the conflict are not included in the definition. On the other hand, a survivor is someone who lived through the Nazi labor and concentration camps, one of the few people who managed to escape from the camps, and the men and women who were in hiding throughout the entirety of the war. In other words, to be a Holocaust survivor, a person must have been a victim of Nazi persecution. Only 1%.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?